All right, here is day 2 of reading the Quran. Thank you for everybody that answered my questions from the last video and kind of clarified some things that I misinterpreted a bit. One of those things being that the word Muslim means somebody who submits to God. So even though Abraham and Ishmael were around before the Quran existed, people say that Islam still existed and they still submitted to God. So that's why they said that they were Muslims in, I think, section 12, around there. Also in section 8, to clarify, when it says Jews and Christians will also go to Jannah, which it said that pretty explicitly. There wasn't, Allah didn't provide more context around that, but people clarified that later on. There's given more context about that. After Muhammad gave these teachings, then since they had those resources available to them and they're not following them, then they won't go. So Jews and Christians currently would not. People also clarified for me that when words are capitalized like he and we, it's done so because Allah is speaking, and they're going to be capitalized since it's referring to him and his angels, is what people were saying, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to go read some more and I'll let you know what I think. All right, that was definitely a lot more fun than the first 1 through 19 sections. I just read section 20 through 35, and I think that this definitely had a lot more storytelling to it. It definitely is still mostly rules and all of that, and I'm not really sure if that's what I'm looking for. I'm mainly more so just looking for evidence of why to believe, since those rules wouldn't really apply to me if I didn't end up believing. It's a bit weird because I don't really know if my input really matters on things that I quote-unquote like versus don't like, as I have my morals that I formed throughout my lifetime, and from what I know to be a good person, I don't really know if that'd be applicable here, since this doesn't apply to me yet, since I'm not a believer in everything. But one thing I did find that I liked was there were some rules on kind of recommendations of how to be a good person, such as in section 22, where it says, practice regular charity to fulfill the contracts with which you have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity, and throughout all periods of panic. Such are the people of truth, the God-fearing. So I think that was pretty cool. Then there's definitely still a lot of fear being imposed, saying to fear God. I know that that's a big part of Muslims' identity, is fearing Allah. Not really sure how I think about that always. If I want to convince somebody to believe a certain way or to do something, that's not the person that I would do. So I think that's one of the things that I disagree on Allah with, but still I don't really know how that's applicable. Also, I read about fasting and Ramadan. There was a very detailed section on that. And one more big point that I want to address and maybe ask is, it talks about Satan and saying don't follow in the footsteps of him, but it doesn't really give context for who he is before. So I assume that the Quran is making assumptions from what to previously believe, but I feel like it should be a bit more explicit saying, here are the sections of the Torah that were correct, here are the sections that were wrong. But it doesn't really do that. It doesn't give a description, at least like up until this point, of who Satan is and of some other characters from the Bible. So a question that maybe some of you could answer is, does Islam believe in the entire Torah or just parts of it, just Genesis? I'm not really sure where it's getting that information from. Another section that kind of caught me off guard was section 27, and it said, do not marry unbelieving women until they believe. A slave woman who believes is better than an unbelieving woman, even though she is alluring to you. I guess that's also one of the points where I disagree on Allah with. I wouldn't want to marry someone just based off their beliefs. The way that I see people is I judge people off their character, because like other things about people, like such as their race, such as where they're born, I don't think that belief is something that someone chooses. I think it's not in that category. I judge people based on their character, more so who they are and not what they are. And I think that choosing who you marry just based on that would wouldn't be something I would want to do. But again, maybe my input doesn't really matter. And if I truly did believe, then I would just want to follow these rules no matter what. And further on, it also talks about divorce a lot. I kind of skimmed through that section since it was very technical. Be like, oh yeah, like if you divorce, only do it twice. You need like this many years if you're divorced. Here's who would get what. And then I think the biggest takeaway from all of this was in section 33. I felt like there was a big inconsistency with one of the things that Allah mentioned. And it was when mentioning Jesus. And it said, if Allah had so willed, succeeding generations would not have fought among each other, after clear signs had come to them, but they chose to wrangle, some believing and others rejecting. If Allah had so willed, they would not have fought each other, but Allah fulfilleth his plan. So that's saying if Allah was in charge during that time and people had known about him and he had made these signs, then that wouldn't have happened. People would not have fought each other during that time. So from the years of like around 0 to like 400 AD when Muhammad had these teachings, that it wouldn't have happened. However, ever since Muhammad revealed the Quran, it definitely hasn't stopped, and there has not been any less fighting over religion or any of that. So I don't think Allah's signs have been strong enough. I guess if I had to give some criticism towards him, but maybe correct me if I'm interpreting it wrong, but I don't think that Allah has like kind of fulfilled this promise that he said in this section 33. But feel free to clarify anything I missed on that. And also in section 33, it was telling the first story of like David actually with like Talut. But it said David and Goliath was like, these are the signs of Allah, showing how like he was able to defeat him. Also like something from the Torah. I'm not really sure like what parts of that they believe, and there's also like not too much context of like the battle. But that's like this is like the first time in the Quran where they mentioned like a sign of Allah, like an actual example of it. So I might do a bit more research on like the evidence of that and like how it would actually be like proof of that. Yeah. So that's my main overview from today's reading. I'd always appreciate feedback on things I've mentioned. Maybe clarifications could help. It's late, sorry. And I, again, just appreciate all the feedback and comments I've been receiving. I've been overwhelmingly surprised with how much traction it's gotten so far. So I'll make sure to keep at it. And yeah, thanks for listening.